Monday before Halloween, and if you are a Liverpool fan right now, then it must be a nightmare. It is Halloween, it is a horror, and it is a nightmare. Now, obviously, we are a United channel, and we don't mind the banter on here as well. And obviously, we don't need to spend too much on Liverpool on here, but I wasn't around last night to do a show, and interesting show. Now, Scott's already into the chat already. Keep Slot 10 more years, because he has United fans laughing with tears of Slot at the wheel. I think Slot has 3 games to turn it around or he'll be sacked. CR7, hi man, how are you? I'm very well. Apologies, there was no show last night purely because there wasn't really anything to happen. And I'm not one for clickbait headlines. I'm not one to come on here and just start rambling on about stuff that, just for clickbait. That's not how we do things on here. I'm JB. What's the topic about today? So we're going to go through Vinícius Júnior and the potential to come to us, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the player. We'll look at those stats. Compare him to Mbeumo and Cunha as well. Different sorts of players, but he would be playing in that number 10 role. So I think it's worth looking at that. We'll be looking at stadium as well. There's a delay on the stadium. We'll be looking at that. Some things that I can't believe, and basically the main story. So we're going to be looking at those 3 things today. Get in there with your chat as always. One thing to say, if you do get into this amazing community, this is the best community on this platform. We may not be the biggest, but we are the best. Be respectful to the community. Be respectful to the chat. We don't mind banter. It looks like at the moment, at least for another 2 days, we can banter other people. Not that I'm about that, but just be respectful to the chat community, to me, to yourselves. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes out, and you will get banned. So we are expecting the trolls, as we always do. I'm not a dictator of this chat. The reason why these shows take so long is purely because I do read out your chats. There are super chats. There's all sorts of stuff on here as well. But ultimately, we are all about community. I will read your chats. So get in there with the game from last night. Scott says, I am the troll today, JB. Look, my friend, if you want to troll other people who come on here today, Scott, Liverpool fans only, as I know Scott is one of the mods and one of the big supporters of this channel, as are most of the people in this chat now. So big up. Let me go through the chat. Caleb says, good morning, my friend. Good morning. Sar hates Liverpool. He certainly does. So let me go through some of the chats first before we get into it. Come on, it's funny. Scott, mate, I do think it's funny. As you know, we do get a lot of Liverpool fans who are respectful in here. I'm also thinking about Wayne, really, really good guy who comes on here, and my sympathies are with him. But the interesting thing now is obviously what's happening now, and this is why I always say football can turn so quickly. So whilst we were the banter club at the moment, we're not, and Liverpool are. There's serious beef with Vinicius and Xavi, and by the way, Pedri, Lamine Lamar and Carvalho. Yo, JB, we just won 3-0 Palace. Congratulations, my friend. 3-0. I must admit, did I see it coming? Sadly, I think I did. I think I did think Palace would win. I did actually watch the match. I don't know what's going on with Liverpool. I don't know. 100%, I have no idea. Sar hates Liverpool. Palace's Slot is at the wheel. Wayne is sweet, but his teams are not. I know. So let's get that off of our chest, as we've not come together since yesterday. Slot is becoming the next Ten Hag. JSN says Vinicius to United is. Oh, no, I don't see it happening. And that's a very, very good point. Get all your opinions in on that as well. I'm just reporting the news on here. I've got some I've got some views on it, which I think that one thing I do hope that we do, because he does have one year on his deal. I would definitely take him. Scott, so would I. I think the first thing to say is, as JSN has said there, where has this come from? So this is coming from all sorts of reports in Spain, and I think it's very, very public now that obviously there is an issue, and there is a big falling out between Alonso and Vinicius. Where does this come from? I don't know. Again, I'm not too close to the ins and outs of Real Madrid, but I think Xabi wants to play in a certain way. Andrew Home, what can I say? You're tough. You know, look, you come on here, you try to troll. I've actually got a nice little tight arse, my friend. So, you know, Andrew, and look, Andrew, I'm very, very scared that you would think that. I think you probably need to rethink about your life choices, Andrew. So, you know, I'm very, very concerned for you, Andrew. I will let the chat handle you. Scott, feel free to bring down the ban hammer on Andrew. I'll give you one more chance, and then you'll get the ban hammer. Joe and Avram are on their way to Aspen. Tic Tac, sir. Dumb and Dumber. Exactly. Andrew Holmes says you support United, mate. You're in no position to talk. I'm in every position to talk, my friend. I can talk. You sent it a flower, Andrew. Oh my God. Andrew. Scott, feel free to ban him because absolute wally. Exactly. Sweet bam bam. Exactly. Andrew, you're pathetic. I think it speaks more about you than it does about me to come in a community. And that's Andrew, trust me, my friend, I wouldn't need any help to deal with you. So, but you're big and tough, hiding behind a YouTube. Look, Andrew, it's really easy, Andrew. I work in IT. I can easily trace your username. It's really, really easy. So go on, but it's fine. Andrew, I don't need your help, mate. Andrew, I don't need anyone's help to deal with you, my friend. So Andrew, all become exactly. Easy, Andrew, easy peasy, mate, easy peasy, and I can expose you for who you are. Exactly. So Andrew, easy peasy, done. Exactly. Reese Furniture and Bed says one of the shoes moved behind you. Possibly. It could be because of this desk. There are no ghosts. I can assure you the only skeletons that I have are in my closet. That's not true. So, Vinny, let's go on to Vinny. Now, I'm going to go through his stats, whether or not we think how much does it cost. What's going on? United, definitely a Liverpool fan, without a doubt. So let's go through Vinny. They're not. How are you feeling? I'm feeling extremely well. Let me know how you guys are feeling today. I think Pino is the next R9. My slaves are all good. Look, it's Halloween. I let them out to knock on the neighbour's door. They can go get their sweets and their treats, and then they come back in, and they can continue to make my merch. That's how we deal with those guys. So Vinícius Júnior, let's look at his stats. Now, as I will always say, stats, and Tulip Play, who's on it all of the time, does love stats. But as she says, these are I don't even. These are for work, so I don't even know why they're on my neck. They just are. So I'm going to go through the stats, give you the headlines. Animish says, "What's up, my guy? I'm extremely well. I hope you are too." So I'm just about to go through some Vinícius stats. Now, whether or not we think this is going to happen, I'll give you why I want this to happen. Obviously, because I think he's a world-class attacker. I think he's more of a left-sided forward, but I think he would play as a number 10. But we've got Cunha in Burmo in those positions. Exactly. So I'm backing an Amorim delivers. Mate, I think a takeover is the ultimate dream. We have had a good run, but still dodgy. Ratcliffe must be planning for the long run. Tell you what, I'll note that, and we can come on to that when we talk about the stadium as well. Because again, I don't forget. I think this fan base. I made a comment last night on somebody's post about basically how Ross really funny is that we win a couple of games, we win 3 games. People are talking about a title push, which I think is fucking ridiculous. The protests have died. People have stopped talking about Ineos, and this is what they do. So we'll talk about that when we come to the stadium as well. We can make the show a little bit longer as well. How much is each? How much is each of what, my friend? There's a high chance of me bagging Sydney Sweeney than Vinny joining. I don't disagree. But let's get into it. But why would you say you are welcome to join us for a few weeks? Now you know how much you love you. What? But why would you say that you're welcome to join us for a few weeks now? You know how much you love you. I don't get what you say, my friend. Vinicius will not join. If he does, then it's all over. Then he does this over then. Yes, maybe I can. So let's go through his stats. So all I'm going to say about stats are use the eye test. I think is number one, because some of the stats I'm going to read out now, particularly for Mr. Mbeumo, they're not the best. They're not the best stats, but the eye test doesn't lie. So you do have to look at stats in conjunction with the sort of eye test. So I'm going to compare Vinicius, and again, he is more of a winger, I would say. But we'll compare Vinicius to Mbeumo first. Okay, so we're going to look at. I'm going to primarily focus on those attacking stats. Primarily focus on the assists, progressive carries, and that sort of stuff. So Vinícius Júnior, non-penalty goals, his actions are not, and I have to say each of these are up to a percentile. So 100% meaning he's one of the best in the world. Anything lower, so I'd say up from about 80% upward. He is definitely in that 1% of their world players. Penalty goals, 0.41 is the 89th percentile for Vinicius, and 0.35, 73rd percentile for Mbeumo. Actions created in non-penalty goals, 0.36 for Vinicius, which is 86th percentile, 0.22 for Mbeumo, which is the 47th percentile. Total shots per 90, 3.24 in the 90th percentile for Vinicius. For Mbeumo, that is 2.21, which is a 51 percentile. For Vinícius Júnior, assists, 0.29 per 90, 83rd percentile. 0.21 for Mbeumo, 61st percentile. Expected assisted goals, 0.3 for Vinicius, 90 percentile. Expected assisted goals, 0.23, 70 percentile for Mbeumo. Those two combined overall, 0.66 per 90, 93rd percentile. The same for Mbeumo, 0.45 at the 59th percentile. Shot creating actions, 5.62 per game, the 94th percentile. 3.54, which is the 48th percentile for Mbeumo. So those attacking stats, Vinicius wins hands down. Now, Mbeumo's stats, when you look at the overall stats, he's coming out roughly about 68th percentile, which is just above average. And you look at Vinicius, he's more up in that 80s. He's got some 94. He's around about the 87th percentile. So there is a significant difference now on the eye test. I think Mbeumo, it would suggest, I think he's not just about that, right? So this season, I think he's been one of our better players. And I do think sometimes, stats can hide a lot and manipulate a lot. But I think it is clear that he is, Vinicius is one of the best players. Then we go down to, let's look at progressive carries. So progressive carries per game for Vinícius Júnior, 7.36 per game, 99th percentile. He's one of the best in the game for that. Mbeumo's progressive carries are 3.36 a game, which is in the 50th percentile. Successful take-ons, Vinícius Júnior, 3 per 90 in the 97th percentile. Mbeumo's 1.3, which is the 36th percentile. touches per 98.89 in the 99th percentile for Vinícius Júnior. Touches again, touches 4.69 in the 59th percentile. Progressive passes 11.66 for Vinicius in the 89th percentile, 9.29 for Mbeumo. And again, Vinicius is in the 90s for those progressive carries, take-ons, touches, progressive passes. Mbeumo actually falls quite short, and he's in and around that, again, that 60th percentile. So between those two, if you're just looking at the stats, Vinicius would be an absolute upgrade. I do think, though, we have to bear in mind two things. Number one, Mbeumo does it in the Premier League, so I think it's a lot harder to get those chances, to get those spaces, purely because I think it's a better league overall. Vinicius is doing it in the La Liga. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to put that league down, but there does have to be a difference between the two. So I think Vinicius, would he fit into the Premier League? That's a question. I don't know. But just by looking at his stats and by looking at him, I would say he'd be worth a punt. Now, it's the same looking at Cunha. So if we look at Cunha compared to Vinicius, then it's interesting reading. So again, we'll go for non-penalty goals. Vinícius Júnior is in the 89th percentile. Cunha is in the 92nd percentile. Non-penalty XG, 86th percentile for Vinícius Júnior. 74th percentile. Shots total is in the 90th percentile for Vinícius Júnior. 98th percentile for Cunha. Assists, 83rd percentile for Vinícius Júnior. 66% expected goals, 90% for Vinícius Júnior, 74% for Cunha. Those two combined, 93rd percentile for Vinícius Júnior, 74th percentile for Cunha. Shot creating actions, 94th percentile for Vinícius Júnior and 81st percentile. Then we're looking at the progressive carries again and passes. Progressive passes, 41st percentile for Júnior, 78th percentile for Cunha. Progressive carries, 99th percentile for Vinícius Júnior, 58th percentile for Cunha. Successful take-ons, 97% for Vinícius Júnior, 83rd percent for Cunha. Touches, 99% for Vinícius Júnior, 43% for Cunha. Progressive passes, 89% for Júnior and 19% for Cunha. So what is I think clear in looking at these stats, and I think Cunha is a better ball carrier anyway in our team, but Vinícius Júnior, obviously would be an upgrade. Let me give me your opinions on that. I do say this is that the Premier League is harder, and to be able to do that in the Premier League, where I think is very, very competitive, those stats, as much as Vinicius looks very, very good in La Liga, I think a question would have to be asked, could he do it in the Premier League? And looking at our two number 10s, I don't think that their stats are significantly different based upon the league that we play. I don't know, Tosca, what you're saying, my friend. Not cutting my hair until United win 5 games in a row. Caleb, are you going to take a look at our defenders? Because Luke Shaw is getting old. Don't get me started on Luke Shaw. Vinny is a beast, and we should make the money in sales for his shirt. Not cutting my hair to the Liverpool game. I am Messi. No to Vinny. His salary will be massive. We have a policy not overplaying. Don't want Vinny anywhere near this club. We need to get Walton in. Lads, I just got a signed picture of Eric Cantona on my wall. When he came back from his karate ban in the 90s, it's him celebrating his goal against Liverpool, which is amazing. He didn't fit Amorim's system. I would take Vinny all day. Cunha is much better. Morning. I don't want to upset the apple cart now. We need to replace Casemiro as he's going next season. Vinny would struggle in the Prem. Can't play Cam. Can't play left wing. In back, Vinny is going to cost 100 plus massive wages. Not to mention, he would require wasting the entire transfer budget on one player. I think that's a very interesting one. He has 1 year left on his contract. Vinny plays on the left. That would be a world-class signing. I don't want Nuno Mendes. will cost more than Vinny. Yes, but he can play the wing back. Vinny isn't a wing back. So these are all really interesting points. I think as a number 10. So I think when we think about this, how would Vinny come into this team? Now, as Scott says there, he does have 1 year left on his deal. Now, there is a scenario where I would take him. No one said he's a wing back. I think he would be an amazing player. I think he'd be an amazing player for our squad. So this is where the interesting part is. So, saw 20-year deal incoming. I love it. So Vinícius Júnior, I think he's definitely one who is going to split the fan base. Now, I would agree, wages wise. I wonder, would we break a bank for this player? And I think that is the first thing to say. I don't know what his wages at Madrid. I wonder how much wages that would be. So let's just. There is a circumstance that I would love to do this. So I know Madrid absolutely love to steal players, right? Madrid would absolutely love to. Or they do, they get players on free or pay very, very low for players. I do agree that Vinícius Júnior is gettable. I think he's the most gettable. Don't know why there's lag, my friend. Probably because of the internet today, my friend. There's not a lot that I can do, and I apologise if there is lag. Let me know how bad it is. Hilarious. You win a couple of games and you think you're going to get finished. Now, Dan Haynes. Instead of being one of those people who jump on and start jumping all over it, what do you mean it's fixed? Can somebody let me know if I'm moving? Can somebody let me know if I'm still lagging? Because I'll have to do something about it. Cool, perfect. Okay. So to Dan Haynes, look, what we do on here, Dan, is that we talk about the news, right? For not 1 second, am I suggesting that we're going to get him? What we do on here is that we report the news and then we talk about it. We talk about it from a logical perspective. You guys get your opinions in, and that is what this is about. I read your comments out of respect and we talk about it. We've always done it on here. We talk about these signings. Some people will want him, some people not. Some people make valid opinions based on price, based on all sorts of stuff, right? And then I'll give you my opinion and then you give me yours. But I am in no means suggesting that we're going to get this player just because we won 3 games. And I'm actually going to say some stuff on that as well. The fact that we've only won 3 games, and I've seen so many rhetorics out there right now that we need to be careful of, because other channels are starting to use clickbait to get you guys in, because I find it incredulous what they're doing. But we can talk about that. Fitz Caliber says he threw a tantrum after being subbed and now we're linked. Embarrassing. He's not the profile that we need or want. So look, I'm of the opinion, look, Dan, people have their own opinion on here. If you want, then that's their opinion. Exactly that. So look, I think Phoenix. I think as a topic, I think this is great, because you guys are. We all have our opinions, and I fall somewhere in between. Now, the danger with this sort of signing for me is that will he go down the lines of a Rubinho? Will he go down the line of those sorts of players that come in for big money? Now, he is a gettable player right now, whether we like it or not. Doesn't mean to say that we're going to get him. Vinícius Júnior is a gettable player, probably the most gettable that he's ever been. Now, come towards the end of the season, he has 1 year left on his contract. And Dan Haynes, you do make a good point. Brazilian Rashford, you do make a good point. Do I think he's one of the best players in the world? On his day, yes, I do think he is. Okay, he's got 1 year left on his deal. Now, if there's an opportunity to get one of the perceived world's best players, would you take a punt on him? Now, many of you on here have said no, valid reasons, right? Wage, would he fit into this side? I don't think he would fit into Amorim's necessarily his side. Now, of those two number 10s, I know we're looking at the stats. If you go back and you listen to the stats, Vinicius' stats are fantastic, right? But it's not playing in the Premier League. Cunha, and Burmo, those stats are on paper, they don't seem fantastic. Cunha's are. But you look at what they do. You look at that eye test, and those two are absolutely fantastic for the system. Now, the problem, do we create a problem? So this is the question I would ask on Vinny, is would he create a problem? Does he create a problem in this system? Does he create a problem? As you said there, the wage structure, would that take a massive hit? Now, in terms of price, this is a situation where I would sign him. I still think he's a good player. Whether we like it or not, even I would have to admit that he's a good player. We do have to factor in, as Footy 007 says there, and I think that is a very, very good point. We are trying to build a club whereby the ethos is different. We're not trying to sign these stars anymore. Don't get me wrong, if there's an opportunity to get a world-class player, I think you need to think about it. But we are trying to create an atmosphere that's not toxic. Would Vinícius Júnior, would he come into this club and would he unstable it? Vinícius, in his mind, I'm sure he's a star in his own mind. I wonder if he'd be able to be humble enough. I don't know enough about the character. Scott says, look, Scott, I don't think anybody's coming at you, my friend. I think everybody has their own opinion on this. And I think that at the moment, I would say people are probably more leaning towards not getting him or not. He has already apologised to the fans. Also, when you're playing good in important matches, especially in Classico, it's natural that you would be angry. But not freaky. I think he's apologised. I think he's apologised to the fans, but he's still falling out with the coach. And Alonso is one of those. Alonso's one of those coaches that once you fall out with him, I think there's no going back. So I think for those of you who are Vinicius fans, I think gettable right now. Let me go. Mark says, hi guys, Vinicius is a super good footballer, but he is a mess of a person. Keep him away from our club. And Jim isn't stupid enough to waste time with Vinny. When we all learn, we need Wharton. Forget everything. And Niche fan, I think Wharton is a good player. I would put other midfielders ahead of Wharton, but I like him as well. So I think Vinicius, for me, there is a situation. I think that I agree with some of you. I think there are more cons than pros. I think the cons are that I don't think we know enough about the character. I think I think the wages would upset this club. Dressing room wise, I don't know if that would upset that apple cart he'd expect to play. And then we've got Cunha, etc. Where would he fit into that? The flip side of that, the con for me is his numbers are elite. It is in the Spanish league, but he's still an elite player. Now, the circumstance that I would take him, for me, as Ricky B says there, what is Vinny worth on a 1-year contract? Exactly. Now, this is where I would take him. The situation where I would take him, I would take him on the basis that he runs his contract down. If he ran his contract down and he became available for free, I would take him all day long, because obviously he's free. But to teach Madrid, to play them at their own game, that's exactly what I would do. Do I think that will happen? No. I think we've been linked to him before. I think the club have admired him, and I absolutely appreciate both sides of the argument here. And I think it's really interesting that you guys, I think, have covered every base with this player. Right now, with 1 year left on his deal, with I think the potential problems it could cause. I think we would need to go in and look at the personality of this player, look at the entourage around this player. I think Phoenix Caliber has hit the nail on the head. I think he is more of a winger. Would he come in and convert as a number 10? You could use him as a split number 10, but then we've got players for that. So I think all indications would point to a no from me. But I think there needs to be an acknowledgement that I think potentially there could be something in this. But I would say right now, I think you guys are right. I think it would be a no from me for now, not for reasons away from football. I think for me, primarily, I would not want him based on the talent. I think the talent is there. I think for me, the numbers don't make sense. I think the personality potentially doesn't make sense. And I think you're right, the structure of the wage. The caveat to that is if you got him on a free, then you could give him the wages. And I think that wouldn't necessarily be an issue. I think you could placate the squad with that and say, look, we've got this player for free. But my worry right now, one of the thoughts that I need to have about these players are the personality types and the traits of these players. And also, I don't think he'd fit into this squad. Mark says, Vinny was destroying Barca on the left. Don't know why we had to come off. The coach decides the players, except he just don't think he has. He thinks he's bigger than the club. Travel Max says, we don't need Vinny. The fella is quality, but what we need in the club at the moment. I do agree with you. Computer says, no, I would 100% consider it. Says Scott, Vinny contract will allow him to use all clubs to force the best deal out of Madrid. He has the monopoly now because of the state of the Madrid deal. Who's come out and said we are considering Vinny? Look, this is all over. Aggregate accounts. This is in the Sun. Look, I am just reporting this news. Look, we're going to be linked, right? As soon as one aggregator account gets it, the Sun gets it. It's everywhere. But do I think there is some substance in this? I do think there is a bit. But whether or not United have the financial power to do this deal, now I do think a lot of this relies on Champions League as well. I think if you don't get Champions League, there is no way. I think this is one to keep an eye on. I think this is one just to keep an eye on it, just to sort of be aware that again these rumours intensify. It wouldn't be one until we go into the summer. So I think this is one to keep an eye on. I think right now, I mean, if you're talking percentage wise, I think you're talking 5-10% that this will happen. But I do think if there is an opportunity to get this player at a good price on a good wage, then I think it's sort of worth to maybe think about it. He can play false 9, centre forward, left wing back if needed. More legs in the Lewandowski on a free makes much more sense. I give my opinion on that, and I will give my opinion again on that. Lewandowski, for me, there's a set of circumstances whereby I would go for the player. I think Sir Jim and Ineos has been reported and have come out already and said no. I think Lewandowski's won say last payday. He's 37, and I think he's looking for a last payday, which is fine. Not for me. There's a circumstance for me that I would bring him into the club is number one. If you look at those sorts of players who've come in there, they've done okay. So Zlatan's done okay. Cavani has done okay. You can say Falcao hasn't. I think Lewandowski at their age, could he come into the Premier League? It's an unknown thing, right? But for me, the circumstance I would bring him into the club is number one, he comes in knowing primarily he's going to be number 2. Okay, we need Šeško to fire. He comes in and his job is to come in to try to oust Šeško, and if that's something that he does, fantastic. We need to be in the Champions League, and also he would need to bring that wage down. There is no way that I would want Lewandowski on 300k a week. he's going to want north of 200. Where I will admit is if we get to the Champions League, we can't just have Šeško. I think we do need a more experienced striker, like a Lewandowski, like a Harry Kane. I just think for me, I think right now, I think if we bring in that type of striker, we are saying he's going to be our number one striker. But we really need the next striker to come in, experience, to work alongside Šeško, to work as a team. To train Obi. Imagine Lewandowski or Kane here teaching Obi. Teaching. There's a kid in the youth called Bianchi, and he scored a hat-trick against Spurs, right? Looks like a really good player. We need these sorts of players in. So for me, the wage has to be right. I think Lewandowski has to come in and be like, you are number 2, and I'm world-class striker. I'm sure he'll fight for that place, but he has to come in, and he has to. One of his jobs is to teach his younger guys. So I think Jim has said no already. Right now, it makes sense in terms of the type of player, but I don't know if we're going to go for those sorts of expensive older strikers again. So I do think that makes more sense to me than Vinny, but I think right now I don't think so, Jim, and it has come out already that we've put the mockers on that and we're going to stop it, but I do agree that I think that we need that sort of experienced striker to come in, and particularly if we're pushing for the Champions League, we can't just have Šeško. We are going to need another striker. Bruno can play in CM, not as a 10, and Vinny can play left wing back and make it work anytime, but he can. If Vinny really has a desire to join United, he will run the deal down, join in a free, and without a signing on fee, he can get a high wage unless goodbye join City or PSG or checkbook clubs. I think I'm with you. I think that's a very, very, very good comment. I think that's where I'm at, because I think it is a risk. Okay, then, so Šeško out, pointless. We need to give Šeško time. No, Šeško in, not Freaky says Leroy is washed. Lewandowski is coming to the end. He will become a coach and massively help Šeško. And that's sort of what I'm talking about, really. I think I don't mind bringing in these slightly older strikers for a year, but they have to come in. Imagine Šeško or Obi or Bianchi learning from Lewandowski. I mean, it would be unbelievable. What's your thoughts on Belieber after the Brighton match, Traveller? I don't want to write him off yet. I think that we have moved targets. I think there's a plus and minus right here. Is that if Belieber suddenly starts playing well again and suddenly starts being the player that he was last year, the price goes up again, right? So that's the downside. It's almost we can't win here, all right? So if his price, if he starts playing well, his value goes up again, right? Simple as that. But then the caveat to that for me will be his price will go up, he's playing well, but then why did it go down for so long? So there will always be a question mark. So for me, if he starts playing well again, his price will go back up to like 100 million. But for me, I would need to take a couple of million off of that, because we've seen what he's like and we've seen the dip in form. So Brighton are going to want like 100 million. I'd only want to go up as high as 75 million. So I think that for me, maybe we have moved targets on that. I think you can't base it on one game. But the problem for me is the red flag. And I don't know about everybody else, but one of the things I'm looking for next season is mentality. I've criticised these players for so long about the mentality of these players. And what we need in this squad is not only talent, but mentality. Belieber is a young guy as well. Let's not forget this. But we also need mentality monsters in here as well. So I think for me, Belieber's not a complete no, but there are now midfielders who have jumped ahead of him. Would I take him at a good price? Yes. But it depends on how he does at the end of the season. So I think for me, there's a question mark there. And I think there are other players, like Stiller, Anderson have jumped there. Wharton have probably jumped in front. I think they'll all be cheaper than him as well. And I think they all can do a job. So Belieber for me is one I'm not going to write off just yet. But I still think now that there's a massive Question mark. Lua is old. He did all he could at the highest levels. Now he can retire with pride. Mark, exactly, my friend. Footy 007. United should step away from making galactical signings and focus on quality and character on and off the pitch. I'm with you, my friend. I think it's brilliant. This goes against our philosophy. Niche fan, I think you're right. Mark Elman, Lewis should go to Saudi. All there is left for him now. I think Vinícius Júnior could probably end up in Saudi as well. Can't be paying a 37-year-old that much. He will come if it's for the right reasons, not financial gain. Phoenix caliber, mate. I'm agreeing with you today. We need Wharton, no excuses. Niche fan, look, I like Wharton, I do, but I personally I would put 2 other midfielders ahead of him. I would prefer Anderson and Stiller. Wharton is up there for me, and I think he's a player. But for me personally, I like Stiller and Anderson more. Only player over 30 we can go for is Harry Kane. He can still deliver for a few years. Don't disagree. Scott says Leo is wash no to Kane as well. All our budget needs to go to Wharton. Niche fan, it can't do, mate. Look, you know I respect your opinion. We can't spend all of our budget on one player, mate. We need 2 centre midfielders. If Casemiro is going to leave, if Bruno Fernandes leaves, there's talk of Mainoo, and we'll go to Mainoo next. We can't spend all of our budget on one player. We need a left wing back. We need a more experienced left wing back. I'd probably argue we need a right wing back. We need a centre back. We need 2 midfield players. We probably need a striker as well. Scott says take Sarr from Palace. Elliot Anderson over Wharton. Mark Elman says, but I would go and try to get Ivan Toney to the Prem with Shesko. I'm with you. I think a loan. I 29 Toney as a loan player. I agree. I do agree. I think you're spot on. I think Ivan Toney on a loan, maybe a loan to buy, a loan with an option to buy, I think would be a good deal. What is Shesko going to learn from Lewa? Shesko is an £80 million player. Niche, Shesko's got a lot to learn, my friend. Shesko is not the finished player. When Harry Kane came into Spurs, he learned from the players around him. He was a good player, but you still learn. If as a player, even when you're 30 years old, you still should be learning. Okay, you'll be in your prime and a master of your craft, but you look at Harry Kane. Harry Kane has improved from the age of 28 to 32, 33 years old. He's learned, and he's progressing to learn, and not only learning, to or becoming a better athlete, but also learning to adapt your game as well. As you get older, you have to adapt. So it's consistently learning. And those players, you look at Cristiano throughout his whole, he's 40 years old. You don't get to 40 unless you learn. You don't get to 40 until you continuously learn to adapt. So Shesko is going to learn. I would take Ishak from Liverpool, not hit. Shesko just needs to start every game. No to Belieber, is to Wharton. JB, we need to go building around Wharton. I don't think we need to go building. Niche fan, mate, I respect the opinion. I disagree. I don't think we need to build around players anymore. I think we can build a philosophy as a team, but the moment you start building around players is when you fail. Does City build around Haaland? I think City do build around Haaland to a degree, but you look at their whole team. United at our most successful, did we build around a player? No, we built around Van Persie in the very last season because we had to, but most teams don't build around a player. You can't, Niche fan, if we build a team around him, we will be a one-trick pony. Because then what then happens is that if you target that player, this club has been a Bruno Fernandes show for far too long. You can build certain patterns of play, in my opinion, for players, but you start building a team around one player, and that's when you fail. Looks like we might be looking to get Camavinga from Madrid in the summer. Could include Mainoo. Interesting one, and we'll come on to Mainoo next. interesting one. Interesting one as well. So let's get on to Mainoo. So I've got some stuff on Mainoo here. So let me tell you what's happening right now with Mainoo. I think Osimhen will go to Barcelona. I don't think Barcelona can afford his wages. I think Osimhen has got himself into a position whereby Barcelona could have got him this year, but no one can afford his wages. So I think for the long term, I think he'll be there. I just don't think Barcelona can afford his wages. Chief Herb, legend of the chat. I think we're done with Vinny-esque type players. Let's not get giddy. Stick to the rebuild plan. Agree. Amorim said he wants a Mainoo replacement. This is what we're going to get onto next, Scott. So segue, my friend. So what's happening now? So basically, as we all know, Kobbie Mainoo, and get me your. I want to know your opinions on Mainoo. Let me know what you think about the play. Do you think he should get his chance? Do you think he's been given enough of a chance? And what I mean by that is the Grimsby game. I think the Grimsby game was the curtains for him. He's had some cameos. I think he's looked bright in some of the stuff he's done. I think he's looked average in some of the stuff that he's done as well. I think he's suffering from Bruno playing in that position. I think he's very niche as well. I think he's a good progressive ball carrier in the final third. He's very, very good with his feet. I just don't think he has the midfield attributes that Amorim wants. I don't think he's that all action kind of box to box midfielder that Amorim wants, more of an engine. I've not seen that from him of late. There is no doubt that Mainoo can still be anything that he wants to be. Ultimately, the manager doesn't fancy him. So Napoli are prepared to renew their interest in Mainoo in this window. Obviously, they're very, very limited game time for him at the moment. Napoli's interest is being driven by the midfield needs, especially after injuries to De Bruyne. Now, obviously, Mainoo and De Bruyne are not the same player, but I think Mainoo can possibly go and do something. Westwire Kevin says, hi, hello, my friend. So I think what this is being driven by at the moment is I think Mainoo wants to go. The club doesn't want him to go. I don't know what the clubs... There are two conflicting things here, as Scott has said. I think Amorim wants him to go. The rhetoric around the club at the moment seems to be that they don't want Mainoo to go. I think that Napoli is on new dumping ground. I don't disagree. I was thinking that today. Are we their feeder club now? Guys, I want to ask you a question. Do you think that McTominay is showing at Napoli now he would ever shown as he remained at United? Or was he the same as Sancho, Rashford and co? I don't think... Right. I'll start off. I don't think he's the same as those players at all. I think he's a very respectful. I think he's a good trainer. I think he's a respectful guy. I don't think he was a problem. I think the problem is that managers didn't know how to use him. I think that Bruno Fernandes being there as a number 10, I think Scott McTominay is a number 10. And I think that we played in a certain way. Don't forget we did have toxicity, which is still there. We had, Rashford, you still had Sancho's and you still had egos. And maybe at the time, maybe Scott McTominay wasn't confident enough. I don't think the club gave him confidence enough. There's no coincidence that how can you go from being ridiculed as such with the fan base and then go on to be in contention for the Ballon d'Or. Not that he was ever in contention, but to do what he did at that club. So I just think he was... I think we failed him. And there are not many players that I would say, like Alanga, right? Alanga left, good player. He was never given the platform, right? Alanga, people say that Alanga, right? For me, the Alanga argument is redundant because it's a couple of years away. He had to go and learn his craft. He needed to learn. He wasn't that player here. He was never going to be that player here. and he's gone away, he's learnt his craft, and he's a good player. I don't think he's a good player as a consequence of leaving the club. I don't think that's right. He's not. He wasn't suddenly the Elanga that he is now. He had to go away to a different club, learn under a coach that was going to give him time. So he's not gone away suddenly being good as a consequence of leaving this club. Scott McTominay has gone and become a better player as a consequence of leaving this club. So I don't think the argument is the same as the other players. I don't think we knew how to use him. Now, do I think if he had have stayed, he would have reached the levels? No, because Fernandes is playing well. Because Fernandes was played in that number 10 role. Do I think this season possibly? I think if Scott McTominay had been here this season and played in a number 10 role, maybe we wouldn't have bought one of the two number 10s. I think under Amorim, I think he would have thrived. Again, Scott McTominay is the reason he fell is because he's not a number 8. He's not a defensive midfielder. His tackling stats are not brilliant. What he's so good at is driving that ball, getting into the box. And he reminds me of like a Müller type of player, right? Whereby probably Müller towards the end of his career, very, very good at getting into the box, very, very good at heading in the box, very, very good at attacking the penalty box. I think Amorim would have Amorim liked that, possibly. Amorim does like his number 10 to be all-round as well. I don't think McTominay necessarily is an all-round number 10, but I think he would have fitted well into this squad. Is Napoli on your dumping ground? Scott is a box-to-box, but McTominay was not too shabby when Ten Hag was here. Bruno has kept so many good players out of the team and getting the chance to show they can do. McTominay, Mainoo are just two. You should have seen Elanga in school, JB. He was immense. I went to the same school. Look, I don't doubt Elanga. Look, I don't doubt Elanga was a fantastic player. I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt if he'd have been under the right coach in this team. You don't become a good player. You don't become a bad player because you're in. Well, you do, but you don't suddenly become a rubbish player, right? Liam Mills, legend. But I don't agree with the argument that Elanga was here, Elanga left, and he became good because he left. I think that does a disservice to Elanga. I think Elanga was here, had so much potential. We didn't use him in the right way. And then Elanga became good because of his own hard work. So that's what I mean is, I don't mean that Elanga... I think it's a disservice to the player. He didn't leave us and then suddenly become good. He left us and became good because he was in the right environment and because of his hard work. Look, I think Elanga's always been good. The glimpses that he showed and the things that he did when he came into the squad, glimpses were there. He should have been given an opportunity. He should have been given his chance. Electric pace. Absolute fantastic player. But he wasn't given his opportunity. And I think he's become a better player because of his own hard work and because he's gone to the right club. So I don't agree with the rhetoric that he left this club and then was suddenly this amazing player, because I think people use that to beat us with. I agree, he was a fantastic player. I agree that we let him go and maybe we should have given him that chance. But I think he became good because of his own hard work. How do you have a nice and blessed day? Thank you, my friend. So Mainoo. So let's get on to Mainoo. So we are reluctant to let him leave. I struggle with that on the basis that we're not playing him. He's sat there. His value is going down every single month, but yet we're refusing to make him leave. I am with Scott on this one. I don't want him to leave, but if we're not going to play him, then let the guy go. It is a waste of talent, Scott, and I agree with you. I think, are we scared that Mainoo goes again and then Mainoo goes and suddenly becomes world class? But if we're not going to play him, then are we in danger of letting another player go? There is no confirmed deal with Napoli, but as we say, the reason why this is, I think, getting speculation more and more now, because Napoli want the player. De Bruyne is out for months. I think De Bruyne is probably at his age and the recovery time. I think he's pretty much going to be out for the rest of the season. Napoli are in the Champions League. Napoli, I don't think, are doing so great in the league and need to maintain that as well. So I think they're looking at a deal for him or a loan. Interestingly, his contract does run until 2027, but there is an option to buy. So, we've got another 2 years on his contract as of next season. Right now, I don't think he's going to sign a new contract. So I think there is a decision to be made with Mainoo. Do we look to sell him in the summer window? Will Mainoo become a problem? I don't know. Mainoo wants to get into the World Cup squad. And I think even as a loan, I think we need to explore that. Now, if we let Mainoo go now, we will be buying him back just like we did for Pogba, 130 million or more. All he needs is a starting role and he will shine. And Mark, I think this is the question, isn't it? This is the question here, is do we think that Mainoo can Mainoo be the long-term successor in that number 8 role? This is the question. Mainoo, there is talent there. There is no doubt. There is no doubt at all. I don't think we will, Mark, but I get the analogy. I don't think we would go back and buy him again. I think once he's gone, I think he's gone. I don't think we would be buying him back again. I do think you're right, though. Mainoo needs a run of games to show what he's about. I don't think Mainoo's one of those players. And most players are not. You need that consistency. You need consistency. He's a young player. He needs that consistency to come into the team and basically come in and give and have his opportunity to play. I think the problem is here is that Amorim doesn't fancy him, and I think Amorim wants another player. Now, there again, Amorim is reported that he will let him go. I think I would let Mainoo go on loan. I think if Bruno Fernandes, Kobbie won't get in the squad because of Bruno, Scott, you're right. If Bruno is here and Bruno is not going to go next season, Mainoo probably has to go. I can't see, and the reason for that is a couple of reasons. Well, the main reason is then we get to next year, and if he stays here, he's got 2 years left on his deal, and then the following year he's got 1 year left on his deal. So I think if Bruno Fernandes stays, I think Mainoo has to go next season. I don't want him to go, but I think that next season, I think that if Bruno stays, sorry guys, then I think that Mainoo has to go. I wouldn't be opposed to loaning Mainoo out because I think that to get him playing, if he's guaranteed to play, I wouldn't do a loan with an option to buy. I would do a loan, give him some game time. Napoli get them through this stage, and then if they want to come in with a large bid, I think it will only help us out. On the caveat that I think Amorim is right, I think we then need to loan a midfield player. We can't loan Mainoo out without getting another midfield player in. So I think that if Mainoo's not going to play, I think that we should loan him out. And if he's never going to play, then possibly. And I think you're right. Mark, I think it's an interesting one, Mark. I do get it. I do get the Premier League loan, but where's he going to go? I don't think Mainoo's going to go to West Ham. I don't think Mainoo gets anything out of going to West Ham. I don't. I think he'll play every game, but I want to see Mainoo play with better players. I think Mainoo gets more out of playing for better players. Whilst I do agree that I think he would be worthy of a loan in the Premier League, I would like Mainoo, if he's going to get loaned to anybody, to go to like a Bournemouth right now. I want him to be in a club whereby they could potentially go in fight for European places. Who are strong. Whilst I do get the West Ham, I'd much prefer him to go to not a Sunderland, but I'd rather him go to but then you'd argue, why would you send him to a rival who are trying to vie for the same spots that we are? So I think United would send him on loan to Napoli, but I only think that if they get a player in. I think if he was to be the successor, he'd have played more. I think Ruben just sees him as a body to fill the bench. Trains and everything in between. Liverpool are rubbish. Mainoo must only go on loan into the Prem and not out of the Prem. Championship loan would be good for him as well. I think Bruno and Kobbie are both going in the summer with Anderson, Baleba and Walton coming in. Liam, I think that's an interesting one. I think that'd be a very, very expensive summer. I think Bruno only goes if we don't get Champions League football. I think Bruno then goes. I think Kobbie, as you say there, if we're not going to... I think if Bruno leaves in the summer, I think Kobbie stays. If Bruno doesn't go, I think Kobbie leaves. I'd love... And I would put... look, Anderson, Baleba have called it a little bit on. I think Stiller... There's reports yesterday that I've seen... Again, clickbait a bit. Stiller coming in the January window. No chance. Is your best player Harry Maguire? Absolutely not. Mark says Leeds. I mean, would he ever go to Leeds? I don't think so. But I think he needs to go, I think, to a Premier League team that's going to play him and are going to be competitive. Are Leeds that club? I don't know. Mark 4212, do you have any information regarding the sale of the club? Under the Glazers have suffered as a brand and a business. Reports are 10 billion is the selling price. Other than the videos that I've done already, there's nothing. I will talk about the stadium as well, because there is some news on the stadium, but we can talk about that. But there's nothing on the sale right now. If anything else, the share price has gone down again. Not that necessarily that is an indicator of a lot, but the main reason why you'd want that to go up is because then the Glazers have to disclose what is happening. Benja says, yo, Benja's a legend. Arc Rider Day, Scott. What's up, player? I've been on Warzone. Are you a plastic Geordie? Do I sound like a Geordie? No, I don't. I'm not a Geordie at all. I think perhaps I need to get some United balls and things up in there. Dill Singh says, hello, Dill and Andre here. Hello, my friends. It's a good game. Mark says, we have a Colombian midfielder coming in the next year. And what was it about 15-year-old kid also signed from Sweden? Yeah, so, yes. So, I never pronounce his name. I never pronounce his name right. But is it also the Colombian kid, a defensive midfielder? I'm going to find his name because it bugs me now. I'm sure Scott will put it into the chat. I can never remember it. It's Orkshow or Orkshow. That's his name. And basically, 17-year-old into the youth, defensive midfielder. Good player. I think it's going to be again very, very interesting on him as well. The other player, Kevin Filling, plays for AIK in Sweden. 15 years old. He looks like a beast. He literally looks like he's about 20. This has got a Vavel sign written all over this. He does look. That's it. Christian yeah, I can't pronounce that second name. Or Auden Z or whatever his name is. Yeah, he does look like a good player. So yeah, I think that we are starting to get some of these good youth players in as well. I watched the youth game yesterday. I think it was. It was Spurs against United. Leon scored a great goal actually from, I think he was left back. Run right through the midfield and scored a great goal. Bianchi scored 3 goals as well. He looks like a good player as well. So I think there are some good youth players coming into this squad. But I think we need players for now. But we are getting these players into the squad. So Billing does look good. My only worry is, again, we've got another 15-year-old, another 16-year-old. Gabriel's going to come into here as well. So JJ looks like a good player, but apparently there are clubs sniffing around him as well. Barcelona, Madrid are sniffing around him. I think the sooner we get him into the first team, the better. He looks like a great player, so hopefully he can come in and be the next big star as well. What's up, British man? I'm Batman. Rob Taff, legend. Lazio, I think that's supposed to be the Paraguayan kid. He's making a big. Was also making big and under 21. Big waves. No, all good, Mark. So yeah, Mainoo. So Mainoo for me. Look, AIK's young striker. Yeah, 2.6. So there's reports between 2.6 and 3.5. So I think that will be a good signing for us. So I think ultimately, I've got to be honest. But serious fan says Vinny Júnior plays on Tuesday nights. I don't think United will be interested in him. Also, he can't play wing back. Interesting one there. I think on Mainoo, I think I'm sad to say, I think I'm 50-50 on it, guys. I think there is a significant chance that he goes. I don't think it's a sale. I'll be astounded if there is a sale. I think he's one for the future. I think we need to hold firm. Look, and unless he's not going to play, if Amorim is dead set on him not playing, you've got to sell this kid. Not because I want to, not because I don't think he's a talented player, because we need the money to reinvest in this team. I think he's going to be such a good player, but I think that we have to do the right thing on this one. So I'm 50-50. Did you know that the academy is also playing with the same philosophy as the first team, 3-4-3? We have to get it going from the youth to the seniors, sign kids in positions in the 3-4-3 system. With us losing 3 players to the AFCON, if Cameroon qualify, I think we keep hold of Mainoo and Xerxes. And that's Rob Taff. I think Xerxes stays. If Mainoo goes, I think we should loan a player in anyway. I think that Mainoo will get his opportunity. I really hope so. There's too much sound of signing midfielders for him not to be going. There is a lot of sound. Yeah, I'm 50-50. I really am. I'm 50-50. I think we need him. I think we need a midfield player. But I think that if we're not going to play him this season, loan him out, but we have to get a replacement in. What do you guys think about J. Gabriel as our reserve striker? I like him. I think that what do you do? Just gamble. I mean, if Madrid are sniffing around him, if Barcelona are sniffing around him, and if all the reports are true that he is the next big star, I'm not one for bringing in youth and depending on youth. There's so many reasons why, because you burn these players. They're not grown fully yet, so physically they're not there. There's probably only one player physically at 16 who I thought was ready, and that was Rooney. Gabriel, I've not seen enough of him physically to know that he's ready. You bring players through too quickly and you burn them. If he's good enough, bring him through. And Liam, I was just about to say the same thing. If you are good enough, bring him in. Show the world what this kid is about. You look at the Arsenal kid. He's come through. He's played a game. He did well. Don't think he's played again, or he's played at limited time. But bring him through. Bring him through. I mean, look. What's the worst? What is the worst that could happen? What, he plays well. If not, he gets experience. Bring him in around the squad. Bring him in. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? So I'm with you guys on it. Stadium. So let's talk about the stadium. What do you think of Estavoa? I don't think I've seen him play, mate. Let me have a look. I might have. Let me have a look. I'll tell you, because I have watched a couple of games. I don't know about Estavoa. Have I seen him play? Is that the William? Because I have watched a couple of. I think he's joining Chelsea. I believe. I think that's why. I think he's joined Chelsea. I think they've just hasn't he joined them? I don't know enough about him, to be fair. I think he's a Chelsea player, so I don't know enough about him, to be fair. I would let him join the first team, give him the team contact, and go from there. And I think you're right, Scott. Yamar was given the chance, and what more can I say? And Mark, and that's it, mate. And that is exactly, I think, the problem this season, as a consequence of being shit last season, is we don't have the games. I think if we had more games, I think you'd see him. I think you'd see some of these players more. I think whilst we don't have the games, and even, for example, the FA Cup, right, when that comes around, we're so going to want to win it. Are we going to give these players a chance? So I'm with Scott. Bring him into the team, I think, as a consequence of not doing well last season. I think this is now the ramifications of this. Is you can't bed in these players. You can't give these youth players a chance. I would like to have seen some of these players in the Grimsby game, but because it was a must-win game, we can't do it. Emin Lamar was good at 16. Donnarumma was ready, but not everyone is like that. Former United's Owen 7 was ready at 18. He looks very good. The only thing I'm going to say about Rooney and Owen was that I think Owen came through and he was 17, right? But you look at Owen was gone by 28. Owen was absolutely destroyed. And I think, whilst I do agree with you, Bart, I do agree completely. Michael Owen is, and I know he had his injuries, but before he got that knee injury for England that pretty much destroyed his career, like his hamstrings were basically destroyed. So I think the problem is longevity. Rooney at 31 too was washed, I think, a bit, because even though, don't get me wrong, Rooney was class, his body and his knees were done. So I think there's pluses and minuses for bringing them through at that age. But yeah, I think Milner came through at 16 as well. So a good player. Valentin Barco is a good sign at left wing back if you want a young player. Otherwise, you can go for Samuel Dart. Stadium will be ready by 2031. They say architects are now fully focused on redeveloping San Siro, and they only start work on Old Trafford circus tent. Ruben can't afford to take chances on young players. Falls of the Reds, we don't need left wing back. We have Dorgu 20 and Leon 18 who plays left wing back. Yeah, so let's get on to the stadium, and that's a very good segue into the stadium. So, obviously they've announced their plans. The cost of the stadium, and we've spoken about this, is going to be around about £2 billion. Now, my first comment on this is I need to say this because I don't think people say this enough. I don't support the stadium build. I'm not going to sit on here like some other channels and start, having my tongue up Ineos's arse and start talking about how I'm excited for this new stadium. £2 billion for the stadium. Whilst I do agree with the area around it needs to change. Look, I'm not opposed to houses being built, right? I'm not opposed to the infrastructure around the club bringing in money for the club, bringing in jobs, bringing in housing for people that need it. I'm not against that. But I cannot get on board with owners who are supported by Ineos who have let our home rot. I can't get on board with it. Whilst, yes, whatever I think, and many of you will like a new stadium, and the arguments are fully there, we'll bring in X amount of money. This new club is not going to be a football stadium, it's going to be an events stadium. Our home is going to be knocked down. Our home is being left to rot. If these parasites had have done something, we probably could have expanded. We would have had a home, and we could have been absolutely fine for the next 100 years. But these parasites, these scumbags, never put a penny of their own money into this club, and now instead of being able to do something with the stadium, which they could, but it's just going to cost so much money, they would much rather knock it down, replace our home with this brand new stadium. Is going to cost £2 billion. That's not a football stadium, it is an entertainment stadium. So from the outset, people can be excited, they can give you clickbait on this stadium. I'm fully opposed to this stadium because of what it represents and what it means that these fucking parasites have done to this club. However, it's not going to stop me from reporting on this news. As Mark said there, look, the stadium concept has been designed by Forster and Partners. And obviously this is all part of the regeneration product. Now, there's a tentative timeline now, as Mark says there. The stadium will be ready for 2031. I'm skeptical of that date. We were led to believe last year or the beginning of the year because, they were scared that this stadium was going to be built by 2028. The 2031 season is where the target is for completion date. Now, as Mark says there, the problem is that they're fully focused on redeveloping the San Siro, and will start work on Old Trafford after that, after they finished. My immediate opinion on this is, whilst I don't know the mechanics, and I don't know the people who build stadiums. I don't know how many companies out there are for that. My first opinion on this, and I don't think anybody else has had this opinion, I don't give a shit. Like, we are the biggest club in the world, and I fully appreciate San Siro and everything else. But if we want our stadium built, go and build our stadium. Why are we waiting on other people? Is this just the way that we've gone, okay, fine, yeah, we're gonna, we need to wait, is this a case of the longer that we wait, the money doesn't have to be spent, the more interest that we don't have to pay on the stadium? As I say, I don't know, there could be ramification in terms of people that build the stadiums and there's only one company, then fine. But if there are other people that can build this stadium, why are we waiting for the San Siro to be rebuilt? We are United. Go out there and go and get the stadium fucking built. If this is what you're serious about, I don't care if they're rebuilding Wembley again. Go and get your stadium built. Now, one of the things to note about this as well is that this stadium is going to be pre-built. So it's not going to take long to build the stadium on the basis that it's going to be pre-built. So it's like a prefab. They basically make the structures and then ship them in. So it's going to be pre-built. There are hurdles, and I will go through some of the hurdles as well on that. Let me go through some of your stats. You a United fan? Yes, I am. With the new stadium, we'll be able to make about $1 million a day with the new stadium. Awesome. Mark, I don't share that, my friend, but I respect the opinion. Spend £2 billion on redevelopment Old Trafford. I am with you. In fact, Nazir, can you shout me out? Of course I can. It's a metropolis. Foster and Partners have multiple jobs worldwide. I get that completely. But they're not the only architect. My comment on this is that whilst I appreciate that there are a limited amount of stadiums that get built a year, right? If you're using a partner that's focused on something else, get another partner. Get your stadium built. Old Trafford is heritage and culture. Don't build a new stadium. They're only here to make money from the club. United is nothing more than a business to these Glazers. They are no better than... I agree with you, Mark. This is all just Glazonomics. Painting dreams with all this is... Mark, and that is exactly it. And I think when people are talking about the stadium, and this is... Look, I'm giving you my opinion on this, right? I'm not here to change anybody's opinion. If people want the stadium, fantastic, right? If people want that, I am not here to change your mind. I'll read your opinion now. If your opinion is any advice on my final exams, hooray, enjoy it. If you've studied hard, don't do any work the night before an exam. Chill, early night, do it. Go and get sleep, and then you'll be good. I'm not here to change your mind, right? I will not call people out if they support the Glazers. I don't understand why you would, but people do. I also will not. I also don't. If people don't support the Glazers, if people do support the Glazers, I have my opinions on it, and I will never call you guys out for your opinions. So if you guys want the stadium, I can see why you would. If you don't want the stadium, then I can see why you don't, because that's my opinion as well on this. But most people don't talk about this. When they're talking about the stadium, they're talking about, oh, how this is going to be great. I don't share that opinion. Vince Calder says Old Trafford is falling apart though. Modern day stadiums are outrageously nice compared to the old leaky rat invested theatre. The slope is hella too dangerous. Ratcliffe wants a new stadium. It's his legacy. He's over 70. He won't be around forever. He will want it made as soon as possible. So call the devil. Now, and again, these are interesting opinions. I'm not going to come back on these opinions because these are your opinions. But the reason, Phoenix, look, for me, it's about like heritage, right? It's about, and everything can't last forever, right? If we had have maintained the club, if the Glazers had have refurbished the club and maintained the club, you look at what Liverpool have done with theirs, right? For me, it is the connotation, it is the optics, it is what the Glazers... Our club, our very home being destroyed, is the epitome of these scumbags, right? They've never invested a penny into this club, and they've let our home rot because they don't care, right? And for me, if they'd have upkept the stadium, but we needed to build a new one, simply because it wasn't sustainable, right? Because just purely because of age, the stadium had to go because of some kind of fundamental issue. But they could have done something. They could have refurbished it. Now I know the land around is very, very difficult to build, but if you're going to at the end of the day going to acquire that land, you could have already made plans in the interim to secure the ground. My problem here is that these Glazers, not only have they destroyed this club, they've never put a penny of their own money into this club. They've put us into £1.2 billion of debt. They've not looked after the stadium. They appointed people who are not football people. They wasted billions of pounds. They drained money out of this club. And then to boot, not only was that not enough, they then destroyed our home. So whilst I'll happily report on the stadium and I'll happily give you the facts, I cannot get on board with it. I simply can't, because what this means, and as Marcus said there, this is about a vanity. This is about Sir Jim bringing a new stadium so his legacy can be there. This is about legacy. This is about profit. This is about the Glazers going to profit from this club. Yet again, I want to know where they're going to get the money for the stadium from. I've done a video as to why Sir Jim cannot afford to buy this club anyway. Where are they going to leverage that debt? Where is £2 billion going to be leveraged? Will it be leveraged against Ineos? If you look at that club, they can't leverage any more debt. Will Sir Jim take the leveraged debt off his own back? No. Will the Glazers leverage the debt against their own assets? No. So where does the club leverage the debt for the stadium? That's all I'm saying. My comment says, if the Glazers let the whole of the Old Trafford go to shit over 20 years, why the hell would they want to spend £2 billion on a stadium if they wouldn't spend 200 million on exactly that? That's why they're looking for people to buy the stadium, because they are tight. Radcliffe only owns 30%, so this means that he will only put 30% of the 2 billion into the stadium. Why would those greedy invest exactly, which is 1.4 of a new stadium? I respect that they neglected it for so long and allowed it to fall apart, so that regeneration will be 2/3 of a new stadium will be practically by the new anyway. The name is set. The design of the new stadium is iconic. The Scousers will love seeing the Trident from their own ground. Going to hate us even more. Hope they keep slot for 10 years. Are you Man City? No. So, look, I get people's opinions. I'm not calling anybody out on their opinions. I think if you like the stadium, you like the stadium. I get it. It just means, and I think, but people should be careful what they wish for. I have no problem with regenerating the ground around it, creating jobs, creating homes, fine. But the fact that our home has been, it's what it represents. So I'll give you the current issues and the stuff. So basically, one of the issues and the hurdles is the current land sale. So as we know, Freightliner and there's one or two other companies there that are holding off for millions of pounds. One of the most ironic things that I think in this is Freightliner's line or their land, I believe, is worth around £50 million, right? What they're saying is this, right? Is that, well, in the future, this land is going to be worth 10 times that. So we want £400 million because in future, we know that this land is going to be worth X amount of money, right? The Glazers are saying no. The Glazers are using every dark art. They're using Sir Jim to basically, there's a compulsory sell order that they're basically trying to enact on them, even though we live in a capitalist market where something is only worth what you're willing to pay for it, that they're trying to basically use every means that they can, including Sir Jim, to force this company to sell this land for a fair price. Even though, and this is the most Hippocratic thing out there, is that the Glazers, the club is only worth £2 billion, which is a lot, but they want 6 or 7 for it. So they are trying to do exactly what the Freightliner are trying to do to them, except the Glazers are such scumbags, they won't pay that price. So the Glazers are trying to use every tool, every loophole, every government contact that they have to try to get to basically prize this land, even though that land is going to be worth 10 times the amount of money. it will be in the next 6-7 years. But the Glazers want to do the opposite. Their value of their club is 2 billion, but they want 7 billion and leave the debt there. This is the people that we're trying to deal with. Funding, £2 billion, as we've spoken about here. Where does that money come from? Mark says, I would love to have seen United be maintained with all the money brought in by the club, also upgraded as time passed. But the Glazers just used Sir Jim as a puppet to get them more money. Exactly that. So the funding was, as we've spoken about here, the government have indicated that they would stump up a large amount of money for the regeneration part. So this is why Freight may actually have to sell for a cheaper price, is because once the government have come in, particularly when we're talking about homes and we're talking about infrastructure and jobs, they'll be forced to sell. So the government will possibly come in and fund that. Just what they're not going to fund is they're not going to fund the stadium. Who funds the stadium? And that is the big question here. So basically the club are looking at funding avenues, so naming rights, commercial income, third-party investment, company structure, so looking at separate company structures as well as to who owns the stadium. So once again, the Glazers are looking at options to convolute the stadium. Who's going to own it? I will come on to that as well. The architect and that sort of team that's not been finalised yet either. So there is some way to that, and also as well as was mentioned already by Mark, they are working on San Siro. There are a couple of outlooks. So the chief operating, so the COO Colette Roche had described the project as a once in a lifetime opportunity, not just for the club but for the region. And the club, the website says that they will continue to play at Old Trafford until the new stadium is built. So, again, the Glazers are going to continue to rinse money. I also like to know, do we think that this will happen? Do we think in terms of, do we think that somebody or a consortium will come and buy this this club before that happens? I'd love to know your opinions on that. Let's go through some of the chats as well. Ruben is a great manager, but they gave him a trash squad. I do agree with that. Would you rather have Vinícius Júnior, Leao, or Kvaratskhelia? I would like Kvaratskhelia. I think that's his name, isn't it? I'd much prefer him. CR7 says hi. Soka the Devil, recruitment under Barada and Wilcox the past 2 seasons have been far better. They shipped out a lot of these players the last 2 summer windows too. I think Soka, I think when you're looking at the players themselves, and I think it's very difficult to judge after you bought players. I think you need to wait until the end of the season. So far, I think the recruitment has been good. But a transfer window is not just about that. It's about money that you pay, the longevity it takes you to sign players. Did they get a pre-season? They pretty much didn't. How many of them played in pre-season? We didn't get a centre midfielder. We probably needed 2. We probably needed a wing back as well. We didn't get a keeper until late. So whilst I agree with you, the windows have been better, I'm going to disagree with Ugarte. I thought Ugarte's not been great. Xerxes, the jury's out on him. But other than that, I think signings-wise, I think they've done a good job. I'm not going to get carried away, but they need to continue with that. Chris Blake says, got to raise the IQ quota in the squad. I agree, Chris. I've always said these are low IQ players, and we need to ship them out. I'm not going to have an opinion on that, Scott. Only thing I will say about the government is at the moment there's a £40 billion black hole. The budget is coming up very, very soon. And the government are looking to pretty much, I think, will raise NI raise income tax, possibly VAT. And how would you feel if all that happened? And bearing in mind there's a 40 billion black hole that we need to fix. How would you feel if the government did that, and then we would have to pay as a taxpayer to buy this, or to fund the land around the stadium? Soko says Anderson is looking very good. People are moaning about Baleba dropping off, but he got injured pre-season. It takes time to build up fitness and form. Qatar Stadium after Jazim buys 40% shares. I don't think that's I've got my opinion, and before I go, I'll share my opinion on it. When it comes to this consortium, I think there are 3 options. Number 1, it doesn't happen, a load of bollocks. Number 2, which I think it is, I think there could be I think the UAE could come in with investment. So what I mean is that they come in, they buy the stadium, they fund the stadium, they come in and they buy the debt. Now, people will say, why would anybody buy the debt? If they come in and buy that debt and fund the stadium, they can lease the stadium back to the club for popcorn rent, but they own it, naming rights, and they'll make that money back. Now, the reason why they would buy that debt is because 1.2 billion pounds to them is not a lot, and they would make money on that debt. So you buy the debt, you buy your way into the club, and once this stadium is built, and once the money comes into this club, and they're here for 20 years, they will make that money back. That 1.2 billion pound loss will easily cover itself. But then also what that then means is that from a financial perspective, it then means that it makes the club financially viable, and you can buy players. So I think that is worth to note. The investment could be, look, we'll come in, we either want controlling shares or we either want equal shares. And what we'll do is we'll fund the stadium, we'll buy the stadium, and we'll clear the debt, because that £3.2 billion investment over the next 10 years, they'll clear that. And it's just a way for them to buy into the club as well. So I think we need to watch that as well, or a takeover completely. They've got the money, they've got the funds, and again, they'll pay an amount of money and they will make that back. However, they want exactly, Scott, exactly that. You know, they'll easily clear that debt, and as a way to buy into the club, 100%. If the UAE invested 1.2 for the debt and 2 billion on the stadium, that's about 50% of the sell value. Well, you say that, but this club wants, well, the Glazers want, I think it's up and around 6 billion to 7 billion. That's not including Sir Jim's. That's not including Sir Jim's 1.3 either. So basically, what they'd have to do is they'd have to come in, pay 5 billion to. Let's just have a low end, right? So let's just say they pay 5 billion to the Glazers, clear the debt of 1.2, that's 6.2, another 1.5 to Sir Jim, that's 7.5, 2 billion for a stadium, that's 9.5. The land around it, another 2 billion. Maybe they'll get people involved. So let's just say for them to outlay for the prices that are being banded around now, we're talking 10 billion. And that 3.2, 3.4 bill to invest in that club is probably more like in and around 30%, right? So which leads me to believe that they'll want at least 30 to 40% of this club. Now, I don't think the Glazers, I think as long as the Glazers are part of this and they guarantee to walk away with around about 3 to 4 billion pounds. Now, imagine for zero money invested in this club, right? Money taken out, they've taken over £1 billion out. They would have to stump up no cost for a stadium. all there would be is silent partners just sat there, and then to walk away with £3 to £4 billion for doing absolutely nothing. I think it's a deal. I think it's a deal that they might do. So I think there are three options. As I say, I think this is crap. It's not going to happen. Investment, as I probably think it might be. It may not be as much as that. It may just be that the Qatar, the UAE come in and fund the stadium naming rights, or it could be a full sale. But a full sale would be absolutely just astronomical, just be ridiculous. So yeah, yes, I'm going to watch the presser today. I'm going to put it on in a bit whenever it's out, and then I'll come back on tonight and we can talk about the presser as well. So guys, on that note, I am going to go. I do have to get back to work, sadly. But yeah, guys, amazing show. Thank you so much for being here. As I always say, you guys make the show amazing. Your comments today, brilliant. I've loved the mix of comments today. Is the presser today? I thought it was Friday, unless it is Friday. Let me check. Whenever the presser is, I thought it was Friday today, to be honest. Let's have a little look. If someone can tell me, this is your job, JB, to entertain us. Well, whenever the press is out, I will watch it. I will be back tonight at some point as well. I will do a show tonight, and we can bring in whatever's out there. Tonight's show is normally just a free show tonight. You get your opinions and I'll see if the press is on, and we can bring that into the show. So guys, thank you for watching. You guys are legends as always. Shane H says, where will United finish this season? I think at the moment I'm still going to hedge my bets and say 8th. The reason for that is, look, just because we won 3, like, I want to be positive, and I'm gonna be positive and remain that way. But until I see more consistency, let's get up to Christmas time, and then my opinion may change. So I think where I'm at now, do I think top 5 is possible? Yes, it is. But I want to have more consistency. We've got one game a week. Like, there's a difference between, do I think we can finish in that top 4, top 5? Yes, I do. Where can we finish, and where do I think we'll finish? So right now I'm in and around between 6th and 8th, but with more consistency, let's just take each game as it comes in. And if we get to Christmas time and we're still in and around 8th to 3rd to 4th, then that's a different conversation, and my opinion will shift. Soka says, Liverpool's are never good at the same time. Let's see. So look, positivity. Look, if we can win the league this year, I'm all for positivity around this team. I am trying not to talk about these players as much because I want to be positive, and that includes the players that I'm not a fan of. I just want to be positive around this team as much as I possibly can. So that's where I'm at on this. So guys, amazing show. I will be back this evening unless anything breaks. But yeah, guys, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the show. And I'll see you tonight. So have a good one, and I'll see you very, very soon. Take care.